everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Madison Nosek, coming to you from the KXAN live studio. I have a special guest here with me this morning, morning anchor Tom Miller. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we are going to talk about your new documentary that premieres this afternoon at 4:30. So I'm very excited for that. It's called The Wake. And I don't know, do you want to just tell us a little bit about it before we get into the questions?
Sure. So it's like you mentioned, it's called The Wake: Secrets of Lake Travis. It's about what essentially has gone wrong at Lake Travis in terms of people who don't make it out of there. What we found out through some of our research was that since 2010, there have been 61 people who have died on Lake Travis. 10 of those people were never recovered. So we go into that. We spent a ton of time out on the water. We had 16 different shoots with a bunch of different groups of people who play a role on the lake, and lake safety and that sort of thing. And so that's what the documentary is about.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to start with my questions now.
Okay.
What initially got you interested in doing a documentary on the dangers of Lake Travis in the first place?
Yeah, so this was something I've actually been thinking about for about 2 years. I'd sort of anecdotally heard these stories about people had gone missing on the lake. There were people that had never been recovered from the lake, but that was it. They were only stories. And so I partnered up with our senior science reporter, whose name is Eric Henriksen, and Eric and I both agree that this is a good topic if we would be able to confirm like a lot of these stories that we had heard. So we went to the Travis County Sheriff's Office and said, hey, do y'all keep track of how many people have gone missing, how many people have been recovered, how many people have not been recovered? And the short answer that we got back was, yes, we do. Specifically, they started keeping track of this in 2010 when they realized that the numbers were high and there was a lot of media interest in this. And so that's what we're presenting with our documentary.
That's awesome. So you looked into a lot of these potential hazards. What did you find is under the water?
Yeah, so that was part of it, and we spent time with the Travis County Sheriff's Office dive team and then a private diver to look into that. But in terms of just what is generally underwater and things that people maybe don't realize is that this dam was created in the early 1940s, construction starting in the late 1930s. There are a lot of construction sites that are still under there, including a concrete plant that was part of what was creating concrete for the Mansfield Dam. In addition to the concrete plant, there are tons of trees. There were orchards that were never cleared out under there. There were barns that were never cleared out under there. That's the private scuba divers that you're looking at right there, who pretty much took us underwater with his GoPro video and showed us all these different hazards. There's a lot, like anchors, there are ropes, there are fishing lines, and all of those can cause problems for boaters, and specifically can cause problems for divers when they go down under.
So this documentary was actually the first time ever that a film crew had been out with the Travis County office dive team. So what was that like? I know you're just talking about it right now, but like, what was that like being the first crew that got to go with them?
It was really interesting. I mean, we learned a lot about what they do. They told us that they get called out about 10 times a year. Now, they respond to all of Travis County, but it mainly is Lake Travis because the Austin Police Department has its own dive team that will cover like Lake Austin, Lady Bird Lake. So they said they go about 10 times a year. They're primarily searching for people who have gone missing. Now, in their worst year, there were 10 people who died on Lake Travis, and that was in 2021. They've also had years where just one person or two people died on the lake. So they essentially showed us what they do. They're able to go up to 100 feet deep and and they use sonar, and they use a remote operating vehicle that goes underwater that gives them an image. This is that dive team video right there. Gives them an image of what's under, and it's a huge team. They have like 15 people. They have what they described as like air traffic control that's working with the diver in near zero visibility to identify obstacles, identify hazards, and they are working on a grid, sort of going back and forth on this grid, trying to find whatever they're looking for.
That's really cool that you got the opportunity to do that and to work with those people. Another thing, you looked into two of the big problem areas on the lake, Devil's Cove and Starnes Island.
Yeah.
What exactly did you find when you guys went out there?
Right. So Devil's Cove, if you know Lake Travis, you go out there a lot, you know what we're talking about. But if you're not very familiar with
I knew the first one. The second one tripped me up a little bit, but I definitely know the first one. Yes.
Devil's Cove is like the big party area, and we talked to like one of the rental boat captains. They have tons. There's probably a dozen or so rental boat operations, and they'll go out there and they get these big bachelor parties and they get bachelorette parties, and all the boats will go out there and they'll tie up and they'll party for hours. And so they told us, the sheriff's office told us that since 2010, 4 people have died in this specific cove. And it's not a very big cove. And they said, yes, alcohol is a factor, but in addition to that, there's sort of this like sense, like you would do with the pool, like little kids at a pool. There's maybe a sense of safety because of the numbers, but you'll get into these situations where everybody thinks that somebody had an eye on somebody else who maybe jumped off to go swim or go get their hat that fell into the water or something like that. And after 5-10 minutes of that person swimming, they won't pop up, and somebody will realize it, and people are partying, people are having fun, people aren't necessarily drinking water, they're drinking alcoholic beverages, and they have problems. Now, to be fair to the rental boat companies, they told us that they always do a safety tutorial similar to what a flight attendant might offer at the beginning of the trip, and then they do their best to keep people under control. But you also know these are people who are in their 20s and 30s often, trying to have a good time, often not familiar with the lake and from out of state, and things can go wrong. To the point about Starnes Island, which is what this video is of, that's a spot that even bigger groups go. Like, so you'll get up to 20 people in Lake Travis, but at Starnes Island, these barges with like 80 to 100 people will roll up, and I mean, you can see here by the video, they'll swim in the back of the boats, they all have water slides, some people will go walking on the island, but it's the exact same problems there, where it's sort of a sense of security that is a false sense of security.
I completely understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I am a semi-recent graduate from college, and I mean, I went to UT, so when we would have birthday parties, fraternity sorority events, we would go on these barges, and it really is very easy to just get caught up in having fun and you're not paying attention, and then I could very easily see how you'd be put in a situation where you're not paying attention, like I said, and something could go terribly wrong.
And with Starnes Island, I should also note, they had the same number of deaths on those party barges. It was 7, as they had at Devil's Cove. And one of the stories we heard was a woman named Rachel Scott. It's a pretty well-known story, but she was just sitting on the top deck of one of those party barges, fell over. We were told she hit her head and then fell into the water, and it took months to actually recover her.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
So you also explored potential solutions to this, though. So what is in the works now for that?
Yeah, there were 2 big ones that stand out to me. The first one's pretty obvious, which is one of the things that the first responders told us was they've never recovered a body that was wearing a life jacket. So they have, at all the parks, they have like loaner life jackets that a lot of organizations have worked to provide. So if you need a life jacket, they're there for you. But I also understand, and I'm sure you do too, that 20 and 30-year-olds partying on the lake don't necessarily want to wear life jackets.
Nobody wants to wear a life jacket.
So the other solution that was interesting and very different is just the Austin Travis County EMS, so our local paramedics, currently have a pilot program on Lake Austin where rather than, when a 911 call comes in for a drowning victim, rather than loading up their boat, getting the ambulance going down to the lake, driving to the lake, and then hopping in, where you could have 10, 15, 20 minutes passed already before that even happens, and getting the right paramedics there who have that training to dive into the water. Rather than doing that, they have a pilot program where they have paramedics who are already on boats with Austin Police Lake Patrol. So these people would have the medical training, they're stationed with law enforcement, so when a medical emergency call comes in on Lake Austin, they would race to it and be there much faster. The idea is that if that goes well, they could potentially expand this program to Lake Travis so that they can get there, get the search going, and if they find the person, give them medical treatment before it's too late.
How soon do you think or do you know when that's going to be implemented or when the program's going to start?
It's already started on Lake Austin. This is their first year, and so we went with them for one of those trainings, and we were, zipping around in their little rafts with motorized rafts to try and document what they're doing, and they were practicing pulling people out of the water during that training. It's unclear if and when it would get the green light to expand to Lake Travis.
Well, it
makes sense.
It does, completely.
It
Completely makes sense. And I don't know, I just feel like everyone's trying to be really more efficient with the rescues.
Yeah.
Because we've had a lot of situations happen within the last couple years. So how can people watch the documentary?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you can watch it right now if you want. It's on KXAN.com. It's on our homepage. It's called, again, The Wake: Secrets of Lake Travis. The version online is about 45 minutes. There's going to be a half-hour version that's just that cut down that airs tonight on KXAN at 4:30, and then it'll also air on the CW Austin at 9. So 2 more opportunities today to watch it if you want to watch it on TV, but again, you can check it out right now on KXAN.com.
I'm really excited to see the final product because I actually got the opportunity to go out with them for a couple of the shoots, which was so generous of you guys to include me. And just seeing everything they were doing, it was amazing. It honestly was. It
was really cool. You were with us when we went with the Sheriff's Dive team.
Yes,
and,
wonderful people.
Yeah,
they were amazing.
They were all great men and women and very inviting and very welcoming. And that was one of those days where we got on in addition to shooting them from the shore, we were on their boat out in the lake, watching them dive off the boat. And it was very impressive.
I got to stay on the shore, but I got to watch from the shoreline. But it was very exciting to be there, and I'm just really looking forward to the premiere.
Thank you.
It's going to be really exciting. So thank you for joining me today. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see you maybe later, and we can do, after it premieres, a recap or something.
Yeah, that would be great.
That'd be fun.
Thank you, Madison.
Of course. Well, thank you again, everyone, for watching. I'm Madison Nosek, and we will see you next time. Thank you for joining us.